Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next webinar in the series of webinars with SDL Auctions. First of all, thank you very much for Martin and Jim for joining us again and taking us through this webinar. This one's going to be slightly different to the last one. We did a webinar before with these guys, and they took us on an overview about the collaboration between Sourced and the Sourced franchisees and SDL. Now, if you haven't seen that one yet, you need to go and watch that webinar first to understand what the offering that we've put on the table is. This webinar is going to be a bit more detailed. It's going to be about the process. So if you've got a property that you want to put into SDL auctions, then you can, and we're going to take you through exactly how you do that. So I'm going to let Martin and Jim talk about that. But first of all, for anybody that has watched the first webinar and received the contract from SDL, because you need to sign an agreement with them. If you've signed that agreement and you haven't passed over your ID, you need to make sure that you pass your ID to them to go with that contract. For anybody that has watched the first webinar and hasn't seen that contract come over for SDL, then drop me a message and we'll make sure that you get that contract, because you need to sign the contract before you can put properties into the auction. Now, if anyone's thinking, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until I've got a property before I put it in the auction, there's really no point. Sign the contract, get it out of the way. There's no financial commitment on your behalf for this. This is all about the collaboration. So you might as well sign the contract, do the ID, get that out of the way, and then go and find property. And the webinar today will take you through how you then put it onto the auction. So with that in mind, Martin, Jim, I'm not sure which one of you is going to go first, but I will hand it over to you.
Fabulous. I'll kick off if that's all right, Chris. So it's Martin speaking. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to run through how the uploads work from your end. It's a really, really simplistic portal designed to just make the process easy for you to send the properties over to us. So before I get started on the screen, you should be able to see the SDL Partner Portal. I've spoken with Chris and we've agreed that the easiest way to keep everybody in the loop on these is, as you find the potential auction properties, if you can package them up in the same way as you do now, load them up onto your CRM system and give Chris sight of the leads, and then provided that Chris gives the approval, you can then upload them onto this portal for myself, Jim, and the team at SDL HQ to do the rest of the process, which I'll talk through now. So forgive me, Sarah, I have used your username and login as an example, just so that I can show you a live feed. Once you log into the SDL portal, you will be presented with this page. So your username will be your email addresses, and your passwords I will send out to all of you, and please feel free to reset your password at any point. You don't necessarily need to, but please change it to something that's easy to recognize for yourselves. I've already pre-populated this for Sarah, so hopefully this will let me log in. So we're going to log in as Sarah. As you can see, you have what we call your dashboard. Currently for all of you, there's no referrals on there, and the main tabs in the center of the screen are for no other purpose other than reference. There's no functionality to any of those. Essentially, you will have your key contacts in the center of the screen. So Sophie Jones is going to be the appointed auction expert for Sarah. Sophie coincidentally looks after the east coast of the country, so she stems up through Newcastle and down towards Norwich. So quite a big patch, but she will deal with any leads for Sarah other than myself. The important point on here is the top right-hand corner, the Refer a Property tab. So once a property has been approved by Chris and you want to put it onto the portal, please click on the Refer a Property tab. And if the website plays nicely,
while you're waiting for the website to update, let me just take franchisees through that process a little bit more, because it might sound a little bit clunky at the minute. So when you guys put the property onto the CRM, it needs to be okayed by either me or one of your support team before SDL will then spend any time on taking that property forward. So yes, you could put it onto the SDL Auction Partners site that you're looking at right now, that Martin's sharing with you right now. But if one of the support team hasn't okayed it, it needs to be run by the support team first, because what we're going to do is we're going to iron out any of the creases that are in that property that we can, the obvious stuff that we can take care of at the beginning before SDL become involved in it, because we don't want to be sending absolutely everything over to them, which will take up a huge amount of their time. That's what we're here for. So everything that goes across to SDL should be pretty much there or thereabouts, ready to be to go into the auction. So that's the thought process behind that. Now, moving forward, what we're going to do is we're going to incorporate our CRM system into that process. So we're going to have a section of the CRM system that will kick out all the data that you need from the property that you've put in there and hand it over to SDL. Now, that process isn't in place at the minute. It's going to be manual at the moment. However, the process needs to be followed, so that you need to put it in the CRM, get it approved by one of your support team that it can go across to the auction, and then we'll put it across to the auction. So just to be a bit clearer about exactly how that's going to work at the moment.
Finally, it looks as though it's going to play with us. Here we go. Okay, so as you can see, under the choose an agent section, it will already be pre-populated for yourselves. Okay, so you don't have to mess around with any of that. On the vendor details, once you click on add vendor, anything that has a red tab or a red asterisk is an essential part of the form. It will not let you progress to the next stage unless you fill these details in. So the vendor details is where they currently reside. Okay, so this is their home address, contact details. We do need a phone number and an email address to allow us to contact them on your behalf and make sure that we can send correspondence back and forth. Okay, best time to contact, we have sort of a 3-hour window that your auction experts will try to adhere to where possible. So if you can put a window morning, afternoon, or early evening, or any time, they're the best chances of getting hold of the client. And then the additional information or additional vendor information is if there's joint sellers, potentially why they're open to the auction route, why you feel it would suit the auction, and what the driving force is for the sale. Just towards the bottom of here, there's 2 tick boxes which get us past the GDPR regulations. Okay, so you have customer contact consent, which essentially allows us to ring them direct and just to confirm that they are the legal owner. In a lot of these instances, they may not be the legal owner. They may be power of attorney. They may be acting on behalf of a third party. But as long as you put that information in the contact information there, as I mentioned, you should be fine to then go ahead and add the vendor. Okay. Once you've done that, it will automatically take you back to the main referral screen. And the next element will be to refer the property that you would like to put into the auction. Just while it's warming up, if the property is the same as the owner's residential address, there is a copy and paste button, so you can just duplicate the information you've already provided. If not, you are then re-entering the address details for the property that needs to be looked at. So if it's a HMO, plot of land, etc., commercial property, it is going to be different. Sorry, it's not just the computer that goes like this on a Friday afternoon. I do know the feeling.
But initially, Martin, can you hear me?
Yep. Can Jim? Yep.
Yeah. So initially, I will look after all of yous in the beginning. So because we're sort of envisioning that a lot of your leads that are coming in will be going into the live streamed auction. So obviously, if once we've spoken to them, we want to put them online rather than in the live auction, then we will pass them on to one of the auction experts to look after you. But in the initial stages, it's me that will be your port of call for your clients. So I might ring you first just to get a heads up on your client before I contact them, so we're all on the same page. You know, so initially, you know, I'll drive that for you. Okay.
Thanks, Jim. So we've added the vendor, the property description. Please tick on this element. It will open up tab number 3. Description if it's a property that is already being marketed, so let's say it's a property that you're currently advertising through an estate agent on a website, copy and paste the description in there. That can be really, really helpful. You can click the red box there to copy the address from the vendor section, as I've mentioned. And then there's a little bit of background here. So I want to open a couple of these tabs just to show you. Property type, there is a large list in there that covers pretty much every eventuality that you should come across. Number of bedrooms, that can be really, really helpful from our point of view. And obviously this is going to duplicate onto Rightmove once we get the instruction. If it is exposed to the market, what's the history of the viewing numbers? Have they had any offers? The reason for the sale and the current status, i.e. is it on the market? Has the sale fallen through? Is it on hold for some reason? What you don't need to do is worry too much about the guide price and the reserve price unless you feel extremely confident at this point of filling this box in. You can add that to the additional property information if you wish. And that additional property information allows you to put in some details about what's happened, how you've come across it, what sort of yield it returns if it's an investment property, if it's a HMO or a rental, what's the income per annum, how does that fit in the local marketplace, is it a really good investment for somebody long term, is it below market value in your opinion, how you've come across it, i.e. has it been on the market previously with an estate agent, who was that estate agent. I don't know if you're aware, but we have the facility to go backwards onto the Rightmove history pages, find that property and have a look at the property details. So if it is something that has a history of being on the market, we'll be able to find it. Once you're confident you fill that information in to the best of your ability, please go direct to the add property button at the bottom, and that will register the referral. It will take you back up to the top of the page here. But instead of having a blank page with a property referral, it will have the property address on there. At that point, Jim and I will be able to see it, okay, as will your auction expert. So in this instance, as I say, it's Sophie that will be looking after Sarah's account. Sarah will be able to see that property, and we can then give Sarah a call, talk her through the next steps, how to upload property images, double check if the property unit or the sale has an EPC for argument's sake that we can just download and assist, and essentially just make sure we've got all the information we need before ringing the vendor direct. When you then go back to your dashboard, at any point, if you remember those three headers in the main dashboard screen, there will be a number count started on the referral screen to give you and us a record of what we are handling for you, both for sourced and as an individual as well, at any point in time. And they will all come up under the property tab with the existing outcome. Okay, so under the outcome column here, it will say whether it's still new, whether we're awaiting vendor, terms of business sent out, instructed, sold, closed, etc. So at any point, you will be able to have a look quickly on this portal as to what's happening with any of your properties before picking the phone up to us if you want. Just a quick reference guide. And it's as easy as that. Obviously, please, when you get a property, have a look around it. If you need to speak to Jim or I for guidance, just to check that you're filling it in properly, please give us a ring and we'll talk you through it again. But it is essentially as quick and painless as we can make it whilst providing the information that we need just to help you gain the instruction and secure the listing. Okay, Jim, over to you, mate.
Just give me 1 second.
What's the last two? That's fine, that very long one.
J99.
Yeah.
Chris, I'll hand control back to you for now.
Jim, are you trying to share your screen? Is that what you're taking care of?
Thank you. No, I do apologise. Delivery. This is not pre-recorded.
Have you got a screen to share, Jim?
No. So, Martin, can you put what I sent you on the screen? Because I'm on my iPad.
Oh, of course I can. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. And then you can just click through it as I talk through it, if that's okay. Put less hassle if we're not all sharing.
Jim's forcing you to be his personal assistant here, Martin. Can you feel that?
He's been trying this for months.
As you can see, Martin does all the difficult things, and I'm just here to do the nice things.
All right, give me 1 second.
So what I've got to show, I'm obviously valuations are valuations.
Can you see the auction valuation screen in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, lovely. Let's just see if that will share it again.
I'm not here to teach us what to do. This is just one of the presentations that I do, some of the training for our guys in-house. And obviously some people have used it for some of the estate agents as well. Some of it is a little estate agency centric, but it's just to give you an idea and a flavour of, you know, the sort of questions, the sort of things that we look for. You know, a lot of what I do is very conversational. It's very much based on, you know, the vendors, what they want. And obviously you've got to do your research and your due diligence, which I'm sure you guys already do. So some of this might be a little bit repetitive, considering how you already value stuff yourselves. And again, a lot of what you do is investments rather than individual houses. But we just kind of thought if we kind of run through this, just to sort of show you what goes through our minds when we're talking to people, what we're sort of discussing with people, we just thought it might be quite useful. So if you just want to click one at a time, Martin. So one of the big things that obviously we always look at is, you know, before we pick up the phone and talk to anybody, we need to do some research. So if we're forearmed, knowledge is power. So if we've got all the information to hand, then it's a lot easier to talk to somebody knowledgeable, confidently, and obviously they get a bit more respect for you because you know what you're talking about. So is it on the market? Is it currently for sale? You know, you'd be surprised how many people will ring me. They've got a house on the market for 1.5 million and they're telling me it's worth 1.7 and they think that I don't know that it's been on the market. So obviously there's lots of different portals that we check. Are there any similar houses, similar properties to yours within a short within the location? You know, if you've got a HMO, what did the other HMOs fetch? Did they look like? Yeah, you can just keep clicking, Martin.
Okay.
Yeah. So how does what you're selling compare to other properties? You know, we've got the facility on Rightmove Plus to have a look at historic stuff that's been on the market. Obviously, for properties like like the ones that you guys have got, you know, there isn't generally the same sort of footprint. Yeah. So when we're looking, has there been prices on? Have they changed agents? What sort of price differentials? And you kind of start to build a bit of a picture of the vendor. Because again, what we do is probably very similar to yourselves. It's very personable. It's more about that individual. Why are they selling? You know, why aren't they selling? You know, what's their motivation, which is the biggest key. Yeah. So just having a look at that shows you some of the sort of things that we look at. You know, in that area, what's the percentage of stock that's sold? Is it a popular area? Is it not? Is it going to generate interest? Have there been other auction properties in that area? You know, there are some areas that we look at that, you know, you do a search of a quarter of a mile and there's 20, 30 properties that have already sold at auction. So you kind of got a footprint of what the sort of values and valuations and guide prices are for that area. You know, if it's something that's got nothing there at all, you know, is there a need for what we're looking to sell? So again, if you have a look on there, it's asking, you know, what sort of vendors are we talking to? What's the circumstances? The main thing is the last one, really, before you give a call. You know, it's nice to have a chat with you guys to say, right, why are they selling? What's their motivation? You know, what do you guys think? Yeah, because you guys are all fairly seasoned in what you do. I know Chris knows his figures extremely well. So anything that's going to come to us, you guys have already sort of pre-vetted. But it just gives us that sort of pre-research that we need before a call. Yeah, like I said, a lot of this is for estate agents. It is for the trainees that we have, but it just gives you a little flavour. You know, so a lot of people that you're dealing with, you know, some of them might be seasoned investors. Some of them might have only ever bought one or two. It might be the beginning of their investment journey, or they might have been buying and selling properties for the last 20 years. You know, so it gives us an idea of what conversations we can and can't have with people. You know, when was the last time they bought and sold one? You know, what's been their experiences? You know, some of them might like, you know, what you guys do because it's off market. They might have never sold at auction before. I talk to lots of people that have bought lots from auction, but have never sold. And they really, even though they bought lots, they don't really know how to sell with auction. You know, how does it work? You know, a lot of auction, if we're going to be nice and simple about it, you know, it's a little bit like eBay. You know, there's different types of auctions that we have. Have they watched Homes Under the Hammer, which invariably a lot of them have, and they're comparing, you know, what they do to some of the properties that they might see on that. You know, but the property industry is quite vast. You know, there's lots of different sections to it, and that's just a bit that I kind of add there, just for some of the new starters that we have. And auctions, realistically, you know, we sit in the middle of the property industry where we're looking to get, you know, a price that's pretty decent, and all of us have a different way of approaching it. You know, our auctions are bottom upwards, the estate agents are top downwards, etc. Next one, Martin. Yeah, so one of the training sessions that I did this morning, I was telling the guys on that, you know, a lot of people do like to talk about what they've got. They're very proud of what they've got, you know, and if you want to find something out, you know, rather than sort of reading a script, just tell me a bit about your property. That might last 10, 15 minutes because they bought it at this and they've done that to it and it's worth this and they think it's that and this is this and that's whatever, you know. So it's about engaging with people in a common sense, very straightforward, very simple manner, where we can have a very nice conversation. You know, we're there to help them. You know, they've got a property, they're looking to sell it. How can we help? Is the solution that we've got something that they want to consider? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You know, even once it's been vetted by yourselves, we might still look at it and then we need to decide where to place it. So we might place it in a live streamed auction, we might place it in our online platform, or we might just go straight to buy it now. Yeah, so there's different things that we can do. And again, some of those depend on the person that we're talking to. You know, so, you know, things like, you know, why are you selling it? You know, when they got a price, where did they get the price from? Was it just from yourselves? Have they had commercial agents out? You know, what figure did they have in mind that they wanted for the property before they spoke to you? You know, and there's always surprises, you know, because I'm involved in quite a few different groups and property platforms, and you look at some prices and you think, oh my goodness, who on earth has thought that that's worth that? And then somebody else says, well, I think that's cheap or whatever. So, you know, there are always surprises along the line. People think everybody's going to want what they're selling. Yeah. So, you know, how long have they tried to sell it? You know, what's been the reaction and feedback when people have looked at their properties? But the key thing is, you know, how soon are they looking to sell? You know, that's the key thing. What we're looking to offer them is a speedy and secure way to sell their property for the best possible price that we can get for them. Okay. Next one, Martin. Sorry. I feel bad now. So one of the things, once you get to know me, you know, yes, I have the tag of National Valuer on my title, but I'm one of them people that tells you I don't value anything. You know, in my world, it's worth what somebody's prepared to pay you for it. You know, and there is, especially with a lot of investments, you know, some quite diverse ideas of how to value something. You know, if we all had an opinion of what a 5-bedroom HMO that brings in 30 grand a year, what sort of value that would be to somebody, you know, I think we'd be quite interested in the results. Yeah. So again, there's different locations, there's different sort of matrix of how we calculate figures. But at the end of the day, you know, it's worth what somebody's prepared to pay you for it. So in this example, we had a property that's on the market at 120. You know, you've done your research. You know, realistically, you know, what price would we need to generate a lot of interest? 70,000, 80,000 pounds. Would that be significant to draw people in, to get them registering? So then that way we can get somewhere close to the price that they're looking for. Yeah. For those of you that are estate agents, you know, lots of you in the olden days where we had asset management companies asking for valuations, and we have people nowadays with part exchange for new builds, they generally ask for 3 prices. What price does it need to be to sell in 1 week, 4 weeks, 8 weeks? And generally auctions is the stuff that we're looking to sell within a week. You know, is that price going to, you know, be very attractive, slap somebody in the face and say, do you know what, I need to register for that? Yeah. Auctions might still not be the best route for them. We can auction anybody's house, but not everybody is auctionable. You know, so that there is a process there. So again, this was just a quick thing just to sort of have a look, you know, what sort of conversation can we have? You know, Mr. Vendor, if somebody offered you that, would you think about it? So even though you've done your pricing, you know, we still want it to be auction ready price wise. So if you've got somebody that's looking for £300,000, you know, if somebody offered them 280 tomorrow, would they think about it? Yeah, probably would. If it was 270, would they think about it? Yes, they probably would, but I'm not going less than 270, Jim. Right, so okay, so then all of a sudden we've got a guide price of 240, 250, opposed to having a price that you've currently got at 300. You know, because a lot of your stock, it is, like we've said before, investment material. So a lot of it is already priced to sell. But just imagine if we could actually bring that guide price lower than the price that you're asking for now, we're going to generate a lot more interest. And I think that's why we're all sat here today, because we're looking to sell more. And obviously, if you sell more, you're going to make more. Thank you, Martin. So again, we've kind of touched on this already, but it's just a question of, you know, if we're going to do a price, I'll always be a little bit greedy and I'll go down up. So if somebody says, yeah, I'm quite happy to consider 80, well, you know, my advice is let's put it on at guide price of 70, reserve it at 77. And our job is to get as much above 80 as we can, sir. You know, if they're happy with that, then that's what we go with it. If not, you know, we might need to look at that again. But the key thing is, one of the main sort of conversation pieces that I have is, just imagine, Mr. Vendor, if we had a guide price of £50,000, how much interest we would generate for your property. Yeah, generally it would be quite a lot. If it goes to 75, it halves. If it goes to 90, it halves again. So it's all about motivated sellers and getting the best possible guide price that we can, because generally, more cheaper guide price, more bidders, more bids, higher value for what they're going to get for their property. And again, we went through all that with the previous slides last week with some of the examples. So that's kind of me done for that, really. And they're the sort of conversations that I will be having with your clients once you've sent the leads over and they've been approved by Chris and his team.
Okay, so just one or two of the things that just to highlight. So there's been a couple of scenarios, I guess, where you might be selling something on Rightmove through an estate agent. It might not be getting the interest that you want, and this could be a really good route to take it away from the estate agents or work in unison with them. But please remember that there are buyer's fees included. So if you have a property at say 150,000 and the vendor would say at 145, it's probably not going to stack for us to then add a fee on top. We're quite happy to have those conversations with you. So if you've got anything like that you want to ping over, we'll have a look at it and try and advise and always speak to the vendor for you, see if it is a viable option. But just remember the fees need to be included within the pricing scenario. Jim, anything else that we need to add?
Well, I was going to say that the nice thing is when I get my daily sourced email, you know, you are, you know, very good in the fact that you're very transparent. And on every deal, it says, here's the sourcing fee, or it's 2% or whatever. So I think a lot of what you do is already probably priced with somebody paying a fee already. So it's not such a big hurdle for us engaging with yourselves as it would be if we were just talking straight to an estate agent. So it's just understanding what those figures are, because it has to be built into obviously what somebody's going to pay.
Lovely. Okay. Are there any questions that we've got on the chat? Just give me 1 second.
No, nothing on the chat for questions. But if anybody has got any questions, then obviously you can ask them now. It's easier if you put your questions in the Q&A section at the bottom. So if you scroll down to the menu, Q&A is the best place to put your questions. So if you've got anything, we'll stay on for another couple of minutes and we'll see if we can answer any of these questions. So on average, this is a question for both Martin and Jim from me, really. What sort of volume of properties are you getting through in a week at the moment?
Cool. Jim, do you want to go with that from your side?
Just to give you an idea, we've just closed for our November auction, and we've got, I think, a catalogue of about 160, 170 properties. And if you kind of bear in mind, we're probably turning away, like I said, 50% of the people that we talk to. So if you kind of break that down, 175, so that's 350 people kind of contacting us. So almost 100 inquiries a week, I would say.
100 a week. Okay.
Something in that sort of region, and that's without the estate agency side of it. That's people calling us direct. So the partner part of what we do with estate agents might not probably have a better idea of how many referrals come from them, but obviously we're dealing with some pretty big organisations out there with regards to estate agents. So I dare say it's probably a similar sort of figure for our online platform as well.
Yeah, we're getting somewhere in the region of about 350 to 400 leads potentially a month. From the estate agency world, as we said last week, the leads are not always fantastic. Sometimes it's that the agents have run out of ideas and there's lack of interest, so they kind of throw us a bone, so to speak, and see if we can have an awkward conversation that they want to avoid. What I can say is that we as a company, we do deal with some sort of fast sale solutions, if you will, up and down the country, and they do seem to be seeing a rise in inquiries for quick sale solutions for properties. So it does look as though the current COVID situation, perhaps the furlough scheme, mortgage holidays, etc., are playing on people's minds about where they might, what they might do into the new year. So I do think there's going to be the opportunity for a lot of business for you guys, and hopefully for us as well over the next few months.
Yeah, great. We've got a couple of questions that have come through now. So first of all, a question from Nick. We are new to Sourced. How do we get access to the auction portal? So Nick probably wasn't part of Sourced when you sent out the contracts, Martin.
Okay, super.
So what I'll do is I'll send Nick's details over to you so that you can, well, first of all, what I'll do is I'll send an email to Nick and I'll send him the link to the previous webinar so he can have a look at it. Yeah. Then I'll send over his details to you, and then you can send him out the contract so he can have a look through the contract, and then he can sign that contract if he wishes. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, that's perfect. No problem at all.
Okay, now next one from Jerry. What are the disadvantages of a property going to auction if it is already on the market and listed by an agent?
Good question.
Okay, I'm happy to take hard questions. I like these. So if it's on there's no real disadvantage, because it's not just about the property, it's about that vendor. So if that vendor reduced his price with an estate agent at £5,000, will that get it sold? You know, with a lot of the pricing that some of the agents are doing, you know, probably not. So the only disadvantage to auction is it comes to us, we put it on, we get the price, but generally we get the price that what somebody's prepared to pay for that. That might be a little bit less than what a vendor's initial expectations were, you know, so that would be, I guess, the only real downside. But at the end of the day, it's worth what it's worth. You know, the main advantage is, you know, they've come to us because they're motivated to sell it quicker. You know, so there's not a massive ruck of sort of negatives to come into auction, because if auction isn't for you, you wouldn't have contacted us in the first place.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think people's perception, the public perception of auction is that it's often the last resort. And in truth, it's the best environment for a large percentage of the opportunities that you guys come across. The vendor has to be motivated enough to sort of want to play in the auction arena. And if it's priced right, as Jim said earlier, the buyers will go for it. The only caution or downside is exactly what Jim said, that it will find, a property of any sort will find its own level in the auction environment, which is what the highest bidder wants to pay for it. It's then really, is that anywhere in the same realm as what the vendor's hoping for?
Great. No other questions at the moment, so we'll just stay on here for another like 10, 20 seconds or so, and then if there's no other questions, we'll call an end to it. But
perfect.
Really great to see the portal. I think what we're going to try and do is we'll have a more techie conversation about this at some point, but pre-populating some of those things if we can with our software, so that whole process of moving it from our CRM into your software is a little bit easier for the franchisees. But as you can see anyway, even doing it manually is fairly straightforward. It doesn't take a huge amount of effort or time. Okay, so at that point, no more questions. So let me take this opportunity to again thank you, Jim. Thank you, Martin. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for walking through your software with us and helping us see how easy it is. So if anyone's got any questions, then by all means come to me. I'm happy to help you out going forward. chris.kirkwood@source.co. But let's call a close to it there. And again, thanks very much, guys.
No problem. Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Have a good weekend.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.